He had a job, a house, health insurance, paid his taxes. For over a decade, no one questioned a thing. His co-workers saw him as intelligent, quiet, maybe a little reserved. His supervisors described him as dependable. He worked in healthcare, trusted with sensitive patient data. But the man they knew as William Moore wasn't William Moore. He wasn't even William Woods, the name on his birth certificate. And the real William Woods? He was sitting in a psychiatric facility, confused, frustrated, labeled delusional, because no one believed he was himself. How does something like that happen? This isn't a story about forged checks or phony driver's licenses. This is a story about what happens when someone doesn't just steal your identity. They live it better than you ever could. It's about a man who made himself disappear and took someone else's existence in his place. It started in 1988. A lost wallet. A seemingly ordinary day. But behind that moment was something darker. Something that would grow into a life-altering deception. Over 30 years, this man would create layer after layer of paperwork, addresses, job records, and digital footprints. Enough to fool the IRS, state governments, HR departments, and even federal databases. And the victim? The real William Woods? His life began to unravel slowly, quietly. His credit score tanked. He was turned down for jobs he once qualified for. Years later, he would be arrested for crimes he didn't commit, while someone else collected a paycheck, paid a mortgage, and walked freely under his name. And what makes this case even more disturbing is that no one noticed. Not his employer, not the banks, not even the federal background checks. It would take a prison phone call, a DNA test, and a curious staff member at a university hospital to finally bring the truth to light. So who was the man calling himself William Moore? What drove him to live a life that wasn't his? And how close are you to losing your identity without even realizing it? For the next few minutes, we're going behind the documents, through the courtroom transcripts, and deep into one of the most bizarre and overlooked identity theft cases in American history. Stay with us, because the truth, the real truth, is far more complicated than you think. In the late 1980s, William Donald Woods was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, homeless, and working at a hot dog cart just to get by. One day in 1988, someone asked to borrow, then quietly kept Woods' wallet. That someone was Matthew David Keirans, then about 22 years old. Within 2 years, Keirans had used that wallet's contents to build a new life as William Moore, or rather, William Woods. By 1990, Keirans had a driver's license from Colorado, a new social security number, and a job under Woods' name. Over the next 3 decades, Woods went from selling hot dogs to burying his true identity, while Keirans married, had a child, and rose to become a high-level IT administrator at the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics, earning nearly $140,000 a year. Meanwhile, the real William Woods was slipping deeper into destitution. Often homeless, he never expected that this identity theft would destroy his life in the most literal sense. By 2015, Woods was so desperate that he appeared in videos shot by YouTube creator FauciTube, living on LA streets, sleeping on benches. A stranger's kindness bought him a motel stay. But shortly after, Woods discovered something shocking. Over $200,000 in loans, credit cards, even a mortgage, all under his name. He walked into a bank in Los Angeles in 2019 to close the accounts, and was arrested instead. He had his social security card and ID. Still, he couldn't answer simple security questions because Keirans had set them. He was booked and labeled Matthew Keirans. In the end, he spent 428 days in jail and 147 days in a psychiatric hospital, medicated and institutionally silenced, all while telling everyone, "I am William Woods," and a man living comfortably in Iowa, calling himself Woods? He fought back hard, faxing fake documents and insisting the real Woods was unstable. Imagine being handcuffed, strip-searched, and locked up, all for a name you've used your whole life. How do you prove you're yourself when every record, every ID card, says otherwise? Could you survive being trapped in someone else's identity? By 1988, William Donald Woods was 22 and scraping by. He'd moved from Kentucky, bouncing jobs, selling hot dogs, picking up odd ends, anything to keep afloat. He never imagined that a single mislaid wallet would take everything he had. That wallet was stolen by Matthew David Keirans, a runaway teen who never looked back. Within months, Keirans had claimed identity documents, a Colorado driver's license. Within 2 years, using genealogical data from Ancestry.com, he had obtained William Wood's Kentucky birth certificate. He became that man, on paper, in government systems, even to those closest to him. Over the next 25 years, Keirans lived as William Woods. He married, had a child. He even took a stable, six-figure job as an IT administrator at the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics under Wood's identity, working remotely from Wisconsin and earning roughly $140,000 a year. Meanwhile, the real Woods vanished, homeless, drifting, disconnected from anything resembling a stable life. By 2015, Woods was featured in viral YouTube videos, homeless, searching for help. It was a turning point. In one video by FauciTube, Woods gratefully accepted help to settle into a motel. Using the gift money, he enrolled in a credit monitoring service and discovered something alarming: $200,000 in new loans, credit cards he never applied for. In 2019, Woods walked into his local bank in Los Angeles to close these accounts. He had his Social Security card and state ID. He thought he had a chance. Instead, he was arrested. Despite protesting, "I am William Woods," the LAPD did not believe him. Keirans, still posing as Woods in Wisconsin, faxed doctor documents, birth certificates, licenses, claiming he was the real Woods. Woods spent 428 days in jail and 147 days in a mental hospital, medicated against his will, all because his face didn't match a database. Meanwhile, the imposter kept working in Iowa, family and routine undisturbed. What would you do if every record, every ID said you weren't you? Could you convince anyone beyond a doubt that you were the real you? Tell us. Have you ever been in a situation where official records felt like they lied? Share your experience in the comments. After William Woods was wrongfully jailed in 2019, all hope seemed lost. But a single phone call changed everything. One that would eventually reach a vigilant detective in Iowa, Detective Ian Mallory, University of Iowa Police. In January 2023, Woods tracked down Keirans through his employment at UIHC and reported him. The hospital's security team passed the case to Mallory, who finally gave Woods a chance to be heard. Mallory didn't just look at documents. He looked at blood, and what DNA revealed would alter the entire course of the case. Mallory obtained a DNA sample from Woods' biological father in Kentucky. The results were unequivocal. Woods, not Keirans, was his son. Keirans, still under Woods' identity, had no relation. The DNA shattered the foundation of decades-long deceit. Confronted with hard DNA evidence in July 2023, Keirans initially denied everything, claiming Woods was crazy and needed to be locked up. But under pressure, the entire story unraveled. He confessed to decades of fraud, admitting that he'd orchestrated false documents to ensure Woods remained behind bars while he, Keirans, lived freely. By April 2024, Keirans pleaded guilty to federal charges, aggravated identity theft and false statements to a financial institution. He admitted using Woods' identity to secure employment, loans, credit, everything from 1988 until his arrest. Woods, now exonerated, has since fought to reclaim his identity and rebuild his life, planting roots back in Albuquerque as a landscaper and preparing legal moves to clear his record once and for all. How often do we bury ourselves in paperwork and forget there's a person behind each sheet? Share your thoughts now. Would you have trusted the system if all your records pointed away from you? Drop a comment below. Albuquerque, 1988. Two young men stand behind a sizzling hot dog cart, launching mustard-smothered sausages into buns. One is 22-year-old William Donald Woods, just trying to pay the bills. The other is Matthew David Keirans, a restless soul at the edge of trouble. That day, Woods lost his wallet. He confronted Keirans. Keirans handed it back, but something stayed in his pocket. Have you ever misplaced something and never got it back? Imagine that small loss becoming the start of a 30-year lie. Within 2 years, Keirans resurfaced, not as himself, but as William Woods. He'd acquired a Colorado driver's license in Woods' name in 1990. By digging through Ancestry.com, he obtained Woods' Kentucky birth certificate. From that point, every official record came back to him, or rather, to Keirans wearing Woods' skin in databases and government systems. How would you feel knowing someone else is quietly living your life under your name? By the mid-1900s, Woods had a mortgage, a wife, and a child. Fast forward to 2013, he became a high-paid IT administrator at the University of Iowa Hospitals and Clinics, making over $140,000 annually working remotely from Wisconsin, everything under falsified I-9s and IDs. And the real Woods? He was drifting through life, often homeless, working low-paid labor, surviving on the margins. Which life would you choose, and at what cost? In 2015, Woods was picked up on FauciTube, sleeping rough in Los Angeles. His story went viral. Viewers raised funds for him to get motel accommodation and, crucially, a credit monitoring service subscription. That's when he learned someone had racked up over $200,000 in loans, credit cards, and even a mortgage under his name. What would you do if you discovered your life had been financed by someone else, without you knowing? In 2019, Woods walked into a Los Angeles bank intending to close the fake accounts. He handed over his real Social Security card and California ID, expecting relief. But he failed basic security questions carefully set up by Keirans. The bank froze the accounts and called the cops. The LAPD arrived. They had received a fax from a Wisconsin number. Keirans, claiming false documents were being used. Woods was arrested and booked as Matthew Keirans. They told him, answer our questions or go to psychiatric evaluation. He refused, saying, I am William Woods. Instead, they declared him incompetent and sent him to a mental hospital. He'd spend 428 days in jail and 147 days in a psychiatric ward, all while trying to prove who he was. If the system says you're the imposter, but you know you're not, who do you turn to? Keirans didn't just step back. He leaned in, sending forged documents and contacting California prosecutors, insisting Woods was mentally ill and dangerous. Meanwhile, the real Woods was losing everything: his freedom, his dignity, his identity. Battling to be heard became his full-time job. He filed complaints in California and Wisconsin, exhausting any options he could find. What would you sacrifice to fight for the identity that was taken from you? So here's the inside of the con. 2 men, 1 name. One earning a stable 6-figure career. The other locked away for claiming that name. And in this story, appearing sane doesn't make you right. In our next act, we go behind the documents, into the emails, and finally inside the forensic lab that forced the truth out of hiding. It's 2020. William Woods is out of jail, but he's not free. His record still lists felonies tied to Keirans. His credit is ruined. His mental health is shattered from forced medication and 147 days inside a locked psychiatric ward. And no one, not the police, not the banks, not even the legal system, will believe he's who he says he is. So he does the only thing left. He fights back on his own. He starts reaching out to news stations, police departments, the FBI, and even hospitals. One person listens. That person is Detective Ian Mallory of the University of Iowa Police Department. Mallory is no ordinary beat cop. He's internal affairs, a fact finder, not a folder stamper. When he gets the report about William Woods working at UIHC, something doesn't sit right. He checks employee records. Woods, or rather, Keirans, has been working there since 2012, making over $140,000 a year as a systems administrator. There's no digital trace of his early life. No high school transcript. No tax returns before the 90s. Mallory knows the digital past doesn't lie. So he digs deeper, and what he finds next blows the whole thing wide open. Mallory subpoenas records from the Social Security Administration, IRS, Ancestry.com, and UIHCHR. They all point in one direction. The man known as William Woods is not who he claims to be. Keirans used Woods's birth certificate, but his own biometric records, fingerprints, DNA, do not match. The nail in the coffin comes from a DNA sample taken from Woods's biological father in Kentucky. The DNA matches Woods. It doesn't match Keirans. The government had been protecting the wrong man for 30 years. July 2023. Armed with evidence, Mallory contacts Keirans, who's still working remotely under Woods's identity. At first, Keirans denies everything. He says the man claiming to be William Woods is mentally unstable. He even faxes new forged documents to the university and California prosecutors, birth certificates, social security cards, job applications, all fake, all carefully manufactured. But Mallory is patient, and the evidence is airtight. On August 3rd, 2023, Keirans is arrested in Heartland, Wisconsin, at his home. FBI agents seize computers, records, flash drives. Decades of lies in one quiet suburban house. Under questioning, Keirans starts talking. The pressure cracks him. He admits to everything. In his words, he borrowed the name to escape his past. But what began as a moment of desperation became a permanent deception. He tells investigators he liked the life better as William Woods. That confession ends the mystery. But it opens a harder question. How did no one notice for 30 years? Finally, in early 2024, William Woods is cleared of all charges. His record is wiped. His psychiatric detention is ruled wrongful. And for the first time in over 3 decades, he is William Woods again. But the damage can't be undone. His youth is gone. His credit, his health, his relationships destroyed. Still, Woods finds a quiet strength. He begins working part-time as a landscaper, rebuilding piece by piece. And now, his story is reaching the world. Have you ever been ignored? Even when telling the truth? What would you do if your entire life had been erased by someone who wore your name better than you? Drop a comment. Share your thoughts. Because stories like this don't just expose a lie. They remind us how fragile our own identity really is. April 5th, 2024. Federal court in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The man who once called himself William Woods sits in a courtroom packed with reporters, victims' advocates, and cybercrime officials. His real name, Matthew David Keirans. In a calm voice, Keirans pleads guilty to 2 federal felonies: aggravated identity theft and making false statements to a financial institution. The sentence, 12 years in federal prison, plus restitution to the victim. Then, something rare happens. William Woods, standing in court for the first time as himself, reads a victim impact statement. His voice is steady, but every word carries 30 years of betrayal. He says, "He took everything from me, my name, my dignity, my years. While he raised a family and lived in comfort, I was homeless, cold, and alone. I begged people to believe me, and no one did." The courtroom is silent. For many watching, this is the first time they're seeing the real William Woods, not as a headline, not as a case file, but as a man who lived in the shadow of another's lie. The judge isn't just sentencing a man. He's sentencing a system. Over 3 decades, no bank, government agency, or employer caught the fraud. Social security systems failed. DMV checks failed. Hospital HR audits failed. The judge calls the case a catastrophic failure of institutional safeguards. It sparks internal reviews at multiple agencies, including the University of Iowa Hospitals and Clinics, which vows to overhaul its hiring verification processes. For William, freedom is real, but recovery is complicated. He's now in his late 50s. His work options are limited. He's emotionally exhausted. He takes up a quiet job as a landscaper in Albuquerque, working early mornings to avoid crowds. A GoFundMe campaign, launched by a local community group, raises funds to help cover legal fees and therapy. And for the first time, William Woods is not just surviving. He's slowly, cautiously beginning to live. William's story isn't just about crime. It's about trust, about how easily someone can fall through the cracks, especially if they don't fit the picture. How many other stories like this are buried under disbelief? Who gets to be believed And who gets dismissed as delusional? These questions don't have easy answers, but William's journey forces us to ask them. Matthew Keirans will serve time, but William Woods already served his. 30 years of erasure, 428 days in jail, 147 days in a mental hospital, countless nights on the street. And now, his name is finally his again. What do we owe a man whose life was taken, without a weapon, without a threat, but with a stolen name? Let us know in the comments. Do you think 12 years was enough? How would you react if your life was stolen piece by piece? And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that dig beyond the headlines. Because behind every file, there's a human. William Woods lost more than just his name. He lost his years, his dignity, and his trust in a system meant to protect him. But through persistence and truth backed by science, he reclaimed his identity and finally, his freedom. This isn't just a story of theft, it's a story of survival. If this case moved you, don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe for more true crime stories that dig deeper than headlines. And tell us in the comments, was justice served? What would you have done if your name, your past, everything was taken away? We'll be reading your thoughts. Until next time, stay alert, stay aware, and take care of your story because someone else might be watching.